Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Scott Luton and Tandria Bellamy here with you on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's live stream. Tandria, how you doing today?
I'm great, Scott. How are you doing today?
We're doing wonderful, wonderful. And I love that shade of green. It's gorgeous.
Thank you so much. I
You
appreciate
bet.
that.
And summery too. And we got plenty of summery going on here with the heat in the Atlanta area, huh?
Absolutely. But the heat at the Atlanta airport is a lot worse. I came through yesterday and there is luggage everywhere.
Oh, well, hey, folks, if you're still being impacted by all that's going on in the last week or so, hey, Godspeed to you and best wishes. It has been something. But on a much lighter note, Tandra, we've got a outstanding show coming up here today, right? So,
Yes, we
folks,
do.
I got a question for you. Me and Tandra have a question for you. Are you feeling overwhelmed with your high volume shipping? Are you losing sleep at night? Maybe even losing a few of your 9 lives? Well, hey, stay tuned because we're going to be sharing 5 game-changing strategies, not just to conduct and execute on your high volume shipping, Tandria, but to dominate your high volume shipping. We've got a been there, done that business leader that will be telling us all about it. Now, Tandria, you have just about seen it all in global supply chain, given all of your experience, right? Should be an outstanding show here today, huh?
Looking forward to it, Scott. And it's perfect timing.
It is. It is. And I'm looking forward to it as well as hearing your perspective on what our guest shares here today. So, folks, 2 last reminders before we get started. First up, hey, let us know what you think. Share your comments in the chat throughout the live discussion, right? And secondly, if you enjoyed today's show, be sure to share it with a friend or your network. They'll be glad you did. All right. It is time to get to work. I want to welcome in our featured guests here today, Justin Kramer, co-founder with ProShip. All right, Justin, how you doing today?
Great, Scott. Thanks for having me.
That was quick. You don't waste any time. That was the fastest swoosh I've seen in 3 years, Justin. So you're bringing an energy to the show here today. Tandria, we've got our hands full today, huh?
Let's go get it.
Let's go get it. All right. So, Justin, our tab been doing some homework on you, right? And I want to share a couple of things. First off, today is not only Culinarians Day, right, where we show appreciation to all those culinary professionals out there. That's a bunch of folks. But it's also National Chili Dog Day. So I got to give a shout out to the home of the infamous spicy chili half smoke, Ben's Chili Bowl up in Washington, D.C. That's no joke. It's good stuff. So, but Justin, as I mentioned, doing homework on you, right? We hadn't been stalking you, but it's been close. So we hear that you are a culinary dynamo when it comes to smoking meats, which is where you spend a lot of your free time when you're not doing big things in the industry. So what's one of your favorite dishes, Justin?
Well, I've got 2. Nothing ever beats making a great brisket, right? It takes 15 to 19 hours, slow and slow.
Yeah.
Nothing beats that. But I do have to say that routinely, as in every other week or so, I smoke about 6 pounds worth of cured pork belly that I cure myself. And I have to say that you add that to just about anything and it makes it awesome.
Hey, so you had me sold with brisket and then pork belly. Of course, you're talking my language growing up in South Carolina where that was barbecue growing up. And it was a lot cheaper back then. I'll tell you that much. Yeah. But Tandria, when you hear brisket and you hear pork belly and you think of grilled or smoked anything, what dish comes to your mind?
You know, it's a place. It's been in business over 70 years, and it's Ted Peters' famous smoked fish, and it's in my hometown of St. Petersburg, Florida.
Oh, I love it. We're going to take a trip down to Ted's, Tandria. Maybe we can get that in before the end of summer. What you think?
Sounds great to me.
All right, good stuff here. All right, so Justin and Tandria, now that we have made everybody starving, that's how these things go. But hey, let's see. Larry Klein, great to have you back. Larry says pork butt goes on the smoker at least twice a month. So maybe you're our second cousins, Justin. Also wanted to say a big shout out to Dave Food from the UK, a brilliant industry pro. Great to have you here, Dave. Looking forward to your perspective, you and Larry and everyone else. Okay, so Justin and Tandria, let's get to work. And we want to start not talking barbecue. We want to offer up some context for folks. And Justin, in particular, I want to start with your professional background. What some folks may not know, and this is one of my favorite parts of your journey, is you worked on nuclear power plants in the U.S. Navy. I can only imagine how difficult that might be and complex. And that would help, I think, eventually get you started in the technology industry. Tell us more, Justin.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I met one of my co-founders of ProShip in the Navy on the USS Enterprise, which is probably the single most complicated nuclear power system that the United States government could create. And what we found is that after learning how to deal with all the idiosyncrasies of 8 reactors, 32 steam generators, all of the appropriated things that go with that, trying to understand enterprise software stacks seemed a lot easier. There was significantly more separation of concern.
Right.
There was less overlap in things. And it was just a very almost natural thing to move from how electricity affected pumps, which affected fluid systems, which affected this, XYZ, and the list of things and how things would change. Well, this isn't too much different than executing shipping, where you start maybe from the catalog through the cart into the e-commerce suite, through the OMS. Maybe there's an ERP in there, WMS, and then, of course, the shipment execution piece. Understanding how all that flows down to shipment execution is very similar to understanding how somebody pulling a rod makes the screws go faster, makes the ship go forward, launches planes off the front.
Oh, I love it. We're gonna have you back. Just dive into that that nuclear power plant portion of your career. But Tandria, I'm out of my league here. I think a big chunk of Justin's response, you know exactly what he's talking about. As you're a Hall of Fame engineering pro, what do you find most fascinating about his background that helped get him where he is today, Tandria?
Well, first of all, thank you for your service. And the fact that you could draw a connection between the two was absolutely amazing. And it made complete sense. So thank you.
It sure did. I'll tell you what. All right. So as we continue kind of setting the table a bit, right, before we get into our 5 game-changing strategies to dominate high-volume shipping, looking forward to that. But, when it comes to ProShip, right, you're a co-founder of the organization. Y'all been on the move, doing a lot of business, a lot of big success out there, a lot of growth. What does the company do? Just in a nutshell, what does the company do?
Well, if you want to get really simple, we make labels that people put on boxes.
Okay.
At the very basic, that's what we do. And then we also communicate the appropriate information to the carriers accordingly. Now, if you want to make it significantly more complex, we take all the data from the enterprise software stack necessary to appropriately gather that information and present it to various rating engines such that we can determine, based upon cost, time in transit, maybe there's dangerous goods, any of these other things that might affect your shipment, such that we can find the lowest cost combination to meet your customer's expectation.
Okay. Tandra, the way he explained that, I think anyone could follow along, even me. And I like how simple he said labels are, but it's critical. All that information, data he was talking about. Tandra, what'd you hear there?
And because I was with UPS for so long, being able to go from everything being done manually to almost, it's impossible to do it manually in today's world, making that connection and him understanding exactly all of the bells and whistles and the connections is something that I think, is underrated, because there is a lot involved.
Supply chain is the details that Justin was kind of laying out in his response there for sure. Okay. So you were talking about complexity a few minutes ago, Justin, especially with your background and some of the things you did, nuclear power plants and technology and all points in between. It is a very complex environment, has been, right? Some old challenges, right? They've been around since the beginning of time, and then some new disruption, some more unique challenges. So when you survey the high volume shipping market right now, Justin, what trends or pain points really stick out in your mind?
Well, if we're really talking about pain points, there's one pain point that kind of existed 20 years ago when we started, but now everybody feels every day. And that is the volatility, the rate of change. And if you're unable to keep up with the rate of change on the details, the decisions that are executed by your software suite or by your people are going to be incorrect. So as we see new carriers getting added, as we see carriers, especially some of the tenured carriers, come up with new features that they want to entice customers with, and they want them to get the greatest value out of that. Being able to have a software stack, and specifically the shipping software, be able to keep up with that, not just in the sheer volume of shipments, but with the actual accuracy, with the technical accuracy of where the carrier is today, not where they were 3 months ago, right? That is probably the single most difficult thing that we're seeing in the industry right now, where we are seeing that there are still a few companies out there that try to do it themselves. They try to gather all the APIs together.
Yep.
But those are changing rapidly. Due to security needs, we're seeing carriers switch from an old XML-based solution to new RESTful JSON with OAuth security, right? These are all, now you don't need to know what all these are. Just understand that these changes are necessary in order to ensure that as we go forward, not only do you get great functional features, but you get great security at the same time.
Tandria, I'll tell you, some of the things I captured from what Justin was laying out there, and I want to call one out. If you're not losing a little bit of sleep, at least a little bit, from a cybersecurity concern standpoint, you need to check your pulse, because I'll tell you, it's an incredible environment, dangerous environment. But the velocity, the pace of business where Justin started, of course, how that plays into the need for real-time visibility and information, and even more challenging, real-time decision-making, fast, confident, accurate, successful decision-making. And of course, more apropos to this conversation, active, effective, successful carrier management. But Tandria, what'd you hear there in terms of how complex the environment is?
You know, Scott, again, just thinking about my background, the pace of change, whether it's retail compliance, whether it's compliance with different dangerous goods regulations, whether it's understanding the carrier constraints, and we're getting ready to move into peak season, and how all of the various peak season rate changes just happen. Being able to have a system and a partner that understands all of those things, that can simplify it for your business so that the business can just then focus on their clients is extremely important.
Yeah. Well said. You know, simplicity is never overrated, can never be overrated in my book, at least. And being able to find that simplicity and ingrain as much of it as possible into an organization, into your day-to-day, hour-to-hour operations, and then finding partners, right, like Justin, the ProShip team, that equally value that and can add and help your team handle this pace that you're talking about, Tandria, more successfully, right? With rigor, and I dare say resilience. Justin.
Yeah, I want to add to that, because you just said a key word for me: simple, right? And every time I hear that word, that's our end goal. When you make a product, your end goal is to make it simple. But simple is not easy.
No.
Okay. In order to make something simple, to make it truly simple yet effective, you actually have to understand all of the details in every step of the way. You have to understand how a change upstream will affect downstream. Once you've done that, though, once you truly understand the details, the idiosyncrasies, going back to nuclear power, once you understand how the average neutron decay precursor affects, so on and so forth, when you understand that, all of a sudden you understand why things work, and you can make it into a very simple model because you understand what that model leaves out and what it contains.
Love that. Simple is not easy, but it's so important. The challenge continues. Well, I want to call one more thing out that Tandria mentioned, compliance. Folks, especially in some of your larger organizations, hey, compliance is your friend. Bring them into conversations. They'll help you not just avoid sticky situations, but will help facilitate growth and success across the ecosystem. Good call out there, Tandria. Really quick, we're about to shift gears and get to our list of 5 things. Looking forward to Justin's and Tandria's comments there. But I got to call out a couple of these comments here. Larry, back on food, because we're starving. Larry says, my favorite smoked fish was my grandfather's fresh Florida mullet. I've never caught one of them. We'll have to get some pictures, or it didn't happen. LK, great to see you here. Michael, welcome in from rainy Atlanta, GA. That's right. Atlanta Braves game has been postponed a couple of times in the last week. And Adrian, hey, great to see you again, as always. Bonjour from the ATL. And I think I owe you a message, Adrian. Great to have you here. Y'all let us know what you're thinking. Let us know about these challenges that the current environment are bringing, or let us know your take on these 5 strategies we're about to walk through. Okay. So now that Justin and Tandria have scared us to death through all the things we got to manage as supply chain leaders, business leaders, you name it, folks, there's good news, because there's a better way of doing things to find a whole bunch more success, especially one of my favorite parts, for your teams, right? The folks that come in every day, they want to be successful, right? Being able to empower them to find more success more easily. That's a big part of the game here. So, Justin, I want to walk through these 5 game-changing strategies to dominate high volume shipping. What are we starting with the first of the strategies? What's that one?
I think one of the big strategies you always want to look at is success, right? You want to, if you're part of an industry, there's probably industry groups associated with it. You want to reach out and you want to actually talk to those industry groups. You want to go ahead and find out what they've had great success with, what they have not. Just only slightly adjacent to that is the carriers themselves, right? If sadly, last week I noticed that there was a scam that one of the guys from Ship Hero actually posted out to let everybody know. And of course, we reposted it to let everybody know, because the United States Post Office is dealing with a lot of fraud at this point in time.
Right.
And I forget the name. And even if I did, I wouldn't be pulling out the name of that company.
Yep.
But what I will say is that, look, as soon as you are in an industry group and you start sharing information, as soon as you start talking to your carriers, and you say, hey, have you ever heard of ProShip? Have you ever heard of WorldLink?
Right.
2 of our product lines there. And if they look at you weird and like, I don't know, let me ask. Right. On the other hand, if they look at you like, yeah, I've got 5 customers using them. Where is your confidence level at this point in time? That's not the only thing you should do, but it's a great way to look at it. It's a great way to understand. For example, if you're in your industry group and you say, what about ProShip? And they say, you need more volume for that. They've got other products that will work for you, right? Again, this starts to help set your mind as to what your expectations should be as you go forward.
So I think we're going to get a bonus strategy here today, because gathering market intel, leaning into those industry groups, leaning into your carrier network, right? Putting your finger on the pulse, seeing what they're seeing, right? Challenges, solutions, successes, speed bumps, you name it. I think it cannot be overstated. And it may sound old fashioned in many ways, right? But hey, what's old is new again. And there's some powerful ways of this market intel gathering. Of course, that the current digital transformation era that we're in offer up. So Justin, I'm gonna get Tandria's take on this in just a second. Then I'm gonna circle back and we're gonna talk automation and business rule management. But Tandria, when it comes to gathering that market intel from across your ecosystem, really big opportunities for that, right? It's important.
It's extremely important. We've had multiple discussions about the importance of having holistic solutions. When we talk about ProShip, we automatically think the warehouse and getting the packages out, getting the orders out, whether it's going to an end consumer or to a retail establishment. But we need to have everybody engaged to ensure that the end product is going to satisfy sales, satisfy marketing, satisfy finance. So having those holistic discussions so that you create an environment that the company succeeds as a whole is extremely important. And when Justin was mentioning the different stacks, each of those different stacks really does touch a different part of the organization.
That's right. Excellent point there, Tandria. Been there, done that perspective. Okay, as I mentioned, we're getting a bonus one, right? So we're going to offer 6 strategies that's going to help you be much more successful and dominate high volume shipping. And that in market intel gathering inside the proverbial 4 walls and outside of the proverbial 4 walls is extremely important. This next step, Justin, and we'll talk more about, is, of course, leveraging automation, right? And business rule management in particular. Tell us more about that, Justin.
Now that, to me, as somebody who's helped design and put together a product, is very important. Okay. And I'm going to throw out a technical term, isolation of concerns. I might have mentioned that a little bit earlier.
Yep.
It's really important, even inside a product. That product is already separating, so that you're only doing the small parcel and the LTL, or maybe some air freight. You're only doing shipment execution in that product. But inside that product itself, you should have separation between your uniqueness,
right,
and the carriers. Okay, if you do not have that separation, when your business rules go into play, they may unfortunately affect the carriers themselves.
Right.
So whether your business rule is some very advanced date shopping, some time in transit calculations, all these other things, those are your business rules and should be kept completely separate from the carrier engines themselves. Reason being is, over my 20 some odd years of doing this,
right,
everything has changed. Okay, with the exception of the basics, right? We still need, where's a shipment coming from, where's it going to, what is in it, which usually we just get the weight for that, how you want to ship it, and then usually the number 5 is metadata, and that tells us if we're going to do any restrictions on that. That hasn't changed. Everything else has. And so by keeping your business rules separate, that means when everything else changes around you, right, and you're still just sending those 5 pieces of information or manipulating those 5 pieces of information in an isolated area, that means the carriers can change. That means you can add new features. That means things such as dynamic rating that we're starting to see come out in the market is something that won't affect you. It is something you can take advantage of, rather than something that you have to emergency react to. So this is why business rules are great if they're in the right spot.
So Tandra, circling back to you on what he shared there, everything's changed, but the important things are still the important things. Your thoughts, Tandra, about automation or business rule management, as Justin was pointing out?
Sometimes, at least in my world, when I think automation, I think, okay, I've got to have conveyors and robots or AGVs or AMRs, or, it's something physical. Very infrequently for me do I think about the back ends that actually really control everything that's going on. And to have an expert, to have a partner that can come in and make sure that the information that I'm pushing out has been handled properly, so that those end activities are done properly, is hugely important. It's hugely important.
And the whole team is pulling on the rope together. There's alignment, right? That powerful alignment, driven in part by business rules and many other things, right, we put in place, so that we're all pulling the rope together, right? And that tug of war between all the things that the market throws at us. Justin, on this next step here, this next strategy here, I want to talk about, of course, user experience, right? Any technology platform, a lot of folks will lead in their design with that user experience in mind. When you think of a modern user interface for a truly enhanced and optimized user experience, tell us more about that, how important that strategy is.
Well, I'm gonna go back to what Tender is just talking about with all the different physical things that are in a warehouse. And I want to ask you, do you need a user interface for your shipping software? Okay. That, oddly enough, sometimes the best user interface is the one that doesn't exist. Okay. If you have full automation, do you need a user interface? If you have pick pack stations where you already have people handling that package, is it best to put that piece of software behind that WMS or WCS or whatever is actually controlling that at that point in time? Now, of course, I've just taken the top 1,000 companies out there and basically isolated them. But then as you go down, yes, now we do have more use for user interface, and we want something that's flexible, most importantly in shipping software, and this is different than your WMSs, than your not your WCSs, but there's not many user interfaces for those. This is different than your WMSs, different than your OMSs, different than your e-commerce suites. When we think about all those other pieces of software, those pieces of software generally don't have to interact with hardware. Okay. And when we look at our modern user interfaces, they're probably going to be browser based. Does your provider know how to properly, securely enable you to leverage the local hardware you have right there at that workstation while still having a proper browser-based interface? Okay. Browser interfaces could be a little bit slow. Have they taken the time to optimize the process so that we can get our operators for the day in, day out shipments, scanning, applying labels, scanning, applying labels, pop up information as necessary. Maybe we're doing marketing while we're doing that. Put in pamphlet A, put in pamphlet C, right? Is that user interface going to be fast enough to allow that to occur and work at the speed of that operator rather than a speed which is slower than the operator, which is going to keep their numbers down, frustrate them? I've even seen some operators actually set up 2 workstations simultaneously just in order to keep up with their own workflow. So a couple of different things that I talked about there, but I really do want to point out the number one thing about a user interface is, do you need it, or do you already have a place where it should be plugged in, such as your WMS?
Excellent point. Excellent point. Excellent question for folks to ask out there. And I would also add, as I heard you describing, and we were talking about velocity earlier, Justin, you could tell you've been in an operation or a million. I think all this expertise kind of floats through your brain at night. I tell you, but taking friction out, kidding aside, taking friction out of your associates, right? Give them exactly what they need and move anything else that's extraneous and may pose obstacles or frustration or friction. Get it out of there, right? Technology or otherwise.
I got lucky enough to help design a system that was intended to ship peak at 1 million packages a day. Okay.
Wow.
It actually ended up peaking at greater than 3 million packages a day. So obviously we overbuilt it. But the thing about it was that was some of the lessons learned that as we went through that. How do we use the user interface, use a dedicated user interface, I should say, only when you need to? And how do we leverage all of the other pieces of software that users are already interacting with in order to actually execute things as efficiently as possible, maximizing the use of people for what they're good for, which is quality control, all these other things that give it that human touch and doesn't seem like it was just poured in by a bagging machine.
Right. Creativity, customer service, so many things that the human factor is excellent at. Tandria, before we move to the next strategy where we're going to be focused on optimizing for enterprise level complexity, which I think is going to be a big one. I'm looking forward to Justin's perspective. We covered a lot of ground on this second strategy, right? This user experience, frontline user experience in many ways. What'd you hear there, Tandria?
Oh, that the best user interface, there's no need for a user interface. I love that. When we talk about simplifying, that's as simple as it gets.
Excellent point there. Excellent point. And those volumes he was talking about earlier, you've seen that and more, Tandria. 3 million packages a day. I can only imagine the scale in your background, Tandria, you've seen. Let's move on to the third strategy here, right? We're going back to something we've touched on a couple of times, and that's complexity, right? We've touched on simplicity and complexity, and folks, the battle wages on since the beginning of time. So, Justin, we talk about really powerfully optimizing for that enterprise level complexity, right? Walk us through that strategy.
All right. So here, I'm going to harken back to simple. Simple is not easy. I'm also going to kick over to my brother and sister that were in the Marine Corps, and the Marine Corps' statement of slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Okay. The only reason both of those work is when you actually dig down and understand not only where things need to occur, but what your actual goals are such that you can segment out what's necessary. Usually, if you are an enterprise shipper, you already have a separation of concerns. As I mentioned before, you have a separation of concerns between your ERP, your WMS, maybe an OMS is in there, your e-commerce suite. Each of them is expected to do a very specific task. Ensuring that you have that separation of concerns and you keep it is the number one most important thing to a enterprise class shipping setup. And ensuring that the data can flow fast enough. Look, it doesn't matter if you've got a piece of software that's old, okay, that's very old. As a matter of fact, I have a customer who is using software from a Honeywell Bull, okay? The Honeywell that we know now that makes the scanners, right? They used to make computers, okay? Now they stopped making hardware for those computers in 1973, the year I was born. And yet still I have a customer that is actively functioning with it. By intelligently pulling information from that, we are not slowed down by that process, and we are able to actually meet the needs of the throughput for that customer. Okay. So it's not about age. It's not about, sometimes it's not even about the technology. We can still, if needed, use flat files. But if you're going to get to 10,000 shipments a day, 100,000 shipments a day and up, right? Because let's face it, the majority of customers aren't shipping 1 million packages a day.
Right.
Okay. Majority of customers that are looking for a piece of shipping software are shipping between 100 packages a day, and they may average out between the 5,000 and 10,000 package a day, right? But all of these lessons associated with how to build an enterprise solution work all the way down at the lower level. That separation of concerns. Your shipping software is not an accounting software. It's not an inventory software, right? Same thing for your WMS. That's the inventory software, not the accounting software. You know, all of these things. And so separation of concerns is the number one thing I always talk to my customers about, because by using something for what's intended, you get the best use out of it. Okay. Yep. But also, you need to have all your contracts in order. You need to have communication with your carriers. They will provide you, whether it's rate files for carriers who still don't provide automated rate uploads,
right,
or they will set up your rates on the back end such that they can be pulled by a system like ours.
Well, so hold that thought, Justin, because we're going to dive more into unlocking exclusive carrier features and integration expertise and the communication cycles that you're kind of talking about on the next strategy. But I want to get Tandria, going back to optimizing for enterprise level complexity, which Justin shared a lot of thought perspective around. What'd you hear there? Getting complexity out of there. What'd you hear?
You know, I had a colleague when I was at UPS that when someone would intrude on somebody else's territory, would be quick to say, stay in your lane. Justin basically explained staying in your lane for each of the systems.
Right.
Allow the systems to do exactly what they were intended to do and stop the bleed over to reduce the complexity the conflict.
Yeah.
Stay in your lane. Universal advice, supply chain advice, shipping advice, really important, especially as it applies to technology. I got to pull in Adrian's comment here. I like it because it brings a visual to my mind. Heck yeah, go slower to go faster, right? As Justin was saying, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. I think the Navy SEALs motto back in the day. And then Adrian also says the line that Lucy and Ethel worked. If y'all remember the I Love Lucy episode where they're trying to keep up and they end up eating all the chocolate. I love that. What a great call out there, Adrian. Okay, we got 2 more strategies to go. And I want to pick back up where Justin was talking about at the end of his last response, talking about the carriers, right? So Justin, key strategy here, how we can unlock really important and exclusive carrier features and lean into that integration expertise that will help us move faster and be more successful. Justin, your thoughts here on this 4th strategy?
So really a lot of that comes around, and it's odd. You'd think I'd start with separation of concerns here again, because it's important, but no, it starts with relationships. Honestly, the carriers are moving things so quickly. Their representatives are going out to various customers pitching these things. And it's not uncommon for us to get a call from a customer or from a carrier who's got a potential customer for us that says, hey, can you implement this new feature? Okay. And having a partner in your multi-carrier shipping software who can do that is extremely important. Having carriers that are willing to work with your multi-carrier shipping provider is extremely important. Whether it is traveling out to New Jersey to meet with a particular team from that carrier, down to Atlanta, down to Memphis. And if you're familiar with why I would go to those places, you will understand why we would be getting great information from the carriers. But no, it's actually really important that there be a relationship, and sometimes those relationships are quantified. Right? UPS has a UPS Ready program. They have their Ready Partner of the Year. FedEx has their Compatible Solution program. They have their Solution of the Year, right? And various carriers have other things. Look at it. Ask them, right? And again, though, the reason this is so important, and I'm going to go back to the early 2000s where we spent 1 month a year updating things. Now we spend 6 calendar months a year with a team of 20 updating carrier changes. Okay. Without that relationship, we would not have we would need even more people because we would be doing things even later. So when you are talking about taking advantage of these things, oddly enough, I'm going to say the relationship between the software provider and the carriers is extremely important, because sometimes what is written and what is expected are two different things. Yeah. So the carrier specs are great, but without somebody to explain, well, when do we round these numbers, right? All of a sudden you no longer have great rates, or you no longer have accurate rates. Okay. If you don't have accurate rates, do you trust your shipping software anymore? All of a sudden you no longer are creating compliant maxi codes or compliant PDF 417s, right? If your shipments have to be relabeled by the carrier, that's not a great way to take advantage of these new features.
So, Tandria, one of the many things that Justin shared there that I really like, and I love each time this comes up in these conversations, it's creating an environment where the carriers can be successful. So you can be a shipper of choice. You can build a relationship that leads to good business for all parties across the ecosystem. But Justin shared a lot more around how you can unlock and develop relationships with carriers that can lead to all sorts of features and integrations, and most importantly, outcomes. What did you hear there, Tandria?
I heard it would be mind-boggling to try and do this without a partner like ProShip. I mean, you think about them being the experts at what they do and how much time they put into ensuring that it works and that it works properly and that it gives you the correct outcomes. I just can't imagine trying to do that as a company on my own.
Yeah.
So that's just mind-boggling.
So first off, you're going to get a Supply Chain Academy Award for the beautiful, dramatic way you just expressed your last perspective. You kept us hanging on for every syllable as you shared. I loved it. But secondly, and I bet you made his day for sure, and a ProShip team's day. At a higher level, I think one of the great points you're making there, Tandria, is our teams, our organizations, the industry, we've got to turn to technology, right? I'm a big believer in the human factor, right? I love one of my favorite parts of this whole technology imperative age that we're living in is how more and more organizations are using that, again, to empower, to enhance, to help the human factor find more success and open up new doors of opportunities. But the cold hard truth is we can't do it without technology, ProShip or otherwise. And I think that was a big part of your last response. So well said there, Tandria. And I will give you your Oscar later, my friend.
The other thing, though, aside from the complexities, if you don't do it right in a lot of industries, it's going to cost you money.
That's right.
And there are, chargeback, there's retail compliance, there's just having a setup where you end up not using the right carrier and it costs you more, not using the right service levels and it costs you more. So
Yeah.
in this case, not only do we need to keep it simple, but we need to make sure that we keep it as cost effective as possible. And mistakes in this area really can cost you hard dollars.
Excellent point there. Hey, David, great to have you here. David's asking a question about USPS increases. We're going to try to get to that maybe, but I bet, Justin, I bet you welcome all kinds of conversations after today's show and get a cup of coffee and talk shop. I bet, Justin. Is that right?
Absolutely. We have our own podcasts and webinars. In those webinars, we take questions directly from the audience and be able to answer them. And by the way, we will, as we move forward to the next one, we'll get his answer.
Outstanding. Love it. So David, welcome. And if y'all have any other questions, especially comments on what we're hearing and your perspective, let us know. This, we had planned, Justin and Tangerine, to talk about this fifth strategy weeks ago. And then I think all of a sudden in the last week, this becomes much more relevant, right? Because we're talking about ensuring operational continuity with automatic updates and, of course, minimizing and eliminating downtime. That's always been important. It's timelessly important, right? Operational continuity. But gosh, in light of what we've seen over the last week that Tanger and I kind of opened the show talking about, man. But Justin, tell us, especially as it means to dominating high volume shipping. Yeah. Tell us more.
Well, first, I'm going to ask everybody to think about, when did the carriers make the largest changes? They don't make the largest changes now. Yes, post office being the exception. They don't make them now, 6 months before we go into peak. They're going to make them the day after Christmas, the first operational day, so to speak, after Christmas, right when you probably still are trying to get those last packages out, when things are still stressful, let's say, in the warehouses, in the stores, in any of your origin points. And that's when, if you don't have the right technology, if you don't have the right carrier business rules, if fuel surcharges changed, if a peak surcharge changed, if anything like that changed, that's when we've seen customers disrupted the most, both from a package delivery point as well as from a cost standpoint. And so I think a lot of this comes down to is, how do you keep that up to date? Okay. How many systems do you keep it on as well? That's part of the, how do you avoid something like CloudStrike? But that's a really difficult question.
Yeah.
Okay. But that being said, the ability to insert these new updates, to make it so that as a new universal routing file comes down from FedEx, or an ERC file comes from UPS, or any of the files that are associated with any of the other carriers, that those can be put in place without stopping shipping. Not only does that mean that you can, during peak, run a 24/7 operation, but it also means that because if you have a way to apply those live, that also means that if there is a patch that needs to come out, you can get it. Okay, that means that it has those business rules, which we've been testing for months.
Right.
They need to take effect. Let's say it's a Friday and your postal trailer has pulled, right? Well, it's Friday, your postal trailer is pulled. Your next pickup is probably going to be Monday. If Monday goes past that time where the business rules are supposed to change, you need to be rating your postal based off of Monday's rules, while you are rating UPS, FedEx, OnTrack, whomever, based upon Friday's business rules. It's really subtle, but it can cost tens of thousands when it's not done properly. So having that update process, having an architecture that allows for real-time updates to be put in place without stopping shipping, having more than one production server with the ability to fail over to them rapidly. These are all just very generic things that I think you should be looking at. Even if you are using a native cloud solution, right? If it's not native cloud, if it's premisable like ProShip is, well, then you can do other things. You can real-time backup your own solution. We've seen a lot of different ways to do it. And again, though, that gets down to the relationship level between you and the vendor.
Right.
And hopefully your vendor will give you the information necessary to allow you to leverage the backup strategies you may already have in place.
However you get there, get there and it comes to ensuring operational continuity. Justin shared a lot of different things you can turn to, including his organization, as he should, because ProShip has been on the move. But Tandria, before we move in, we're going to move into kind of story time. We're going to share some examples of business leaders here in just a second that have been acting on these strategies and others that Justin's going to share with us. But Tandria, what'd you hear there? What's important that you pull out and put in front of our audience there?
I think communication. Sometimes you don't even know where your failure points are, your weak points are, or what things can go wrong. So being able to have all of the people that are necessary, that are looking out for that, number one, but also communicating that, number two, so that the team is fully aware of all of the things that have to take place to make it seamless for their clients.
Well said, Tandria. I want to bring in Dave's point. Justin, this might make your day as well. Dave Food weighing in here. Dave says, we work in such a last-minute world that carriers are wanting to pick up the urgent at a max premium. Making that available requires simple integrated platforms like ProShip. Well said, Dave. You might get an Oscar as well. Supply chain Shakespeare over there between you and Tandria. All right. So, Justin, I want to move. I think it goes without saying the 5 strategies that you've laid out here, what I think in a really agnostic manner, all apply to ProShip, right? These are strategies you and your team have really baked into y'all's approach of doing business and a technology that powers shipping and global supply chain. But I want to get you to tell us a couple of examples, a few stories where business leaders have embraced these strategies or others and have truly transformed their high volume shipping results. Your thoughts there, Justin?
Yeah. So first things first, ProShip has a lot of retailers. So I talked about one that's Wisconsin based. We've got others that you can see on our website, like Alta and GNC, Petco. There's a lot more than that. And really what it comes down to is all of them have looked at their solutions, looked at their needs. They have told us what their limitations are, and then told us what their expectations are. And for almost all of them, it boils down to a single thing. And that is finding the best way to meet a customer's expectation for the lowest cost possible. That might mean executing from a store, because that store is in the same delivery zone. It's a zone 0 or zone 1, if you will. So we know it's going to be delivered tomorrow. That's the greatest experience at the lowest cost, right? If we're going across country, looking at multiple different carrier service levels to see what which hits the lowest cost. And coming soon, actually looking at do we ship it today or do we ship it tomorrow? Because as we see dynamic rating start to take effect, if lanes are full today, they may not be as full tomorrow. And if the service level will still meet the customer's expectation, it might be better to hold this package until tomorrow morning. Okay. So there's a lot of things that we're looking at. There's a lot of things that our customers, retailers especially, and of course you can't talk retailers without talking about 3PLs, because who do 3PLs usually ship for? Retailers and manufacturers, right? So really that's what it comes down to for our biggest 3 customer segments is that. Now, as you move over into a regulated or healthcare, right, which we separate the two of those regulated, usually Department of Defense, FAA, something of that nature. You still have to worry about some other things, but usually there's a lot more control over data because now you're no longer working with PII, personally identifiable information, but you're working with PHI, personal health information. And I'm going to tell you that the practices that you use in healthcare work really well for some of the most targeted industries out there, retailers, to help ensure that they don't have data breaches. So that's what we see with these companies is
right.
Not only are they applying the operational execution, not only are they building systems, like I said, that'll hit 1 million packages a day with us, but they're also protecting that data at the same time.
So, Justin, I tell you, your passion for what you do leaps out of your camera and into the digital universe here. Tandria, he's a bit passionate about what they do at ProShip. this, and I'm learning all kinds of new acronyms. PII, PHI. I thought I'd conquered most of the acronyms in global supply chain. I'm learning a whole bunch more here today. I'm gonna get Tandria's comment here in just a second. I want to ask one more question before I do that, though. Justin, we've covered a lot of ground here today, right? We laid out the 5 strategies plus the bonus one about going out there and gathering that market intel from across the ecosystem. It's really important. Folks can sleep on that one a lot, I think, because we can kind of get stuck in the day to day, getting things done. And we need to get out there, looking around corners and finding ways of doing that. But I digress. For folks, if they wanted to get started today to start on that path to dominating high volume shipping, what's one thing folks can do today, Justin?
I've got to send them to proshipping.com. That's PROSHIPINC.com. The blog section in there, not only does it have, will it have a link to this video, right?
Okay.
All the other videos we've done, there's individual articles if you want to understand. Oddly enough, our single most popular page on our entire website is parts of a label.
Really?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, think about it. If you're not used to shipping and you look at a label, it might as well be written in Chinese, right? Or Mandarin, I guess I should say. But being able to sit there and understand the recipient block, the shipper block, where your tracking numbers might be, all that is the place where everybody needs to start in this industry. And then, of course, if you want to dig down and go deep into all these things, that's really one of those things that you can do. Go to the various industry solutions. Watch things like this, right?
Sure.
You don't have to do everything on ProShip. I will be out with one of the presidents inside UPS at Parcel Forum in Dallas this year. Okay,
very cool.
And that's where we're going to be talking about some very interesting changes that UPS is trying to lead in the market. Okay.
So when you head to Dallas, you're going to have to report back to me and Tandria the food scene, right? The place to get delicious barbecue or brisket or steaks, you name it, and what maybe to avoid. Okay. Can we have you back to do that, Justin?
You know what? I'd love to do that, but I never leave the Gaylord when I go there. I'm from DFW straight there, but I will find some good places to eat. So
I believe it. I'm sure you stay busy in a lot of those conversations out there, industry conversations. But Tandria, in a second here, we're going to make sure folks know how to connect with Justin beyond what we've shared in the ProShip team. We got a couple resources we're going to share with folks. But I want to go back and go ahead and ask the patented key takeaway from Tandria Bellamy, because we've covered a lot of ground here today. I offered up a lot of strategies that folks can take outside of working with Justin and ProShip, or they can make the call and of course, leverage Justin and the team equally as much there. Big opportunity. But what is one key takeaway from today's conversation, Tandria, that folks they can't forget, right? Even if it takes something, if they got to double up on their ginkgo biloba to make sure their memory can hang on to it, what must folks not forget about this conversation?
Actually, this is going to be an easy one, and that's keeping it simple. The level of complexity that Justin has described is amazing. I was with the UPS for 34 years, and there's so many things that he's brought up about shipping, the act of shipping, the systems that are involved in shipping, complexities in shipping, the things outside of what I would normally think about, that it has been extremely enlightening, but it also has been quite perplexing that there are people that do this without some outside expertise.
Right.
So again, we had a great conversation the last time we were together about ROI and really understanding where your ROI is coming from. Here, if you don't know where you're losing money, it's hard to really quantify the benefit of something like this. But after a conversation like this, I would really have some conversations with the experts to try and delve into what I may be missing when I'm looking to implement a system like this.
That's right. Been there, done that. Take it from Tandria. At least have the conversations, folks. Right. And I'm probably preaching to the choir to our audience, because we've got the smartest audience in all of global supply chain, I can assure you. Okay. I promised some resources from Justin here, Justin, the ProShip team. I want to bring up a graphic. We've got a great white paper that's going to dive more into some of the things that Justin was sharing, right? This white paper is focused on the top 3 reasons modern shippers choose ProShip enterprise multi-carrier shipping software. We're also dropping the link so you can download this white paper in the chat. You're one click away from doing so. And I'll be the first to tell you, folks, don't take our word for it, right? Don't even take Justin's word for it. It's easy to schedule a discovery call with the ProShip team so you can discuss your specific high volume shipping needs and kick the tires. One of the things I take away from Justin and the team is Justin doesn't shy away from any questions, no matter how tough or complex. He is ready, folks. He and the team are ready, I can assure you. All right, good stuff here today. Tandria Bellamy and Justin Kramer really enjoyed the conversation. And Justin, again, you laid out there, folks want to connect with you. They can venture over to the website. We dropped the website right there in the chat, proshipinc.com. We dropped the white paper there. Trying to make it easy for folks, right? Take friction out. We don't want them hunting down anything we shared here today. Also, the discovery call, folks, you can check it out right there. But a lot of good stuff. Justin, safe travels to Dallas. And congrats on all the success and growth that you and the ProShip team have experienced. We've been talking with Justin Kramer, co-founder with ProShip. Thanks so much, Justin.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Tandria Bellamy, the one and only, really enjoyed your perspective here today. And hey, you're leaving here with a Supply Chain Academy Award, right? It'll fit. I don't know if we can fit it in your awards cabinet. You got so many from your time in industry. But Tandria, really enjoyed your perspective here today.
Thank you so much, Scott.
You bet. And folks, make sure you connect with Tandria Bellamy and Justin Kramer on LinkedIn as well. Finally, folks, I highly encourage you, check out those resources, lean into and connect with Tandria and Justin, right? Have the conversations, right? Get out there and see how organizations are doing things different to find success. And in this case, to dominate high volume shipping. I tell you, opportunities abound. So whatever you do, though, here's the challenge, folks, as we wrap up today's conversation. Take one thing from all the brilliance that Tandria and Justin have dropped on us here today. Take one thing, put it into practice. Your teams are ready. They want to change how business is done. They want to find success each and every day. We got to equip them and empower them with the technology and the know-how to do just that. So with all that said, on behalf of the Supply Chain Now team, Scott Luton challenging you, do good, give forward, be the change that's needed. And we'll see you next time right back here on Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.